Welcome again to Once Upon a Mormon, a podcast where we explore our lives and memories from our time in the Mormon Church. A warning to those listening, the contents of our podcast may contain discussions that are stressful or triggering to those who have experienced similar situations. It also reveals informations and practices that are kept secret by the Church, such as temple ceremonies and abuse. Please reach out to us if you have any concerns at onceuponamormon@gmail.com. We acknowledge that some small audio clips of Mormon general authorities have been used in the production under the Australian Fair Use Copyright Act. These recordings are all available publicly from the Church and are used for the purpose of criticism and review. We hope you enjoy our podcast and thank you for listening.
I believe the Church is in better condition than it has been at any time in its entire history. My beloved brethren and sisters,
welcome to Once Upon a Mormon,
another testament of religious abuse.
So many have been hurt.
Persecutions may rage, mobs may combine.
Whom shall we go?
Sown in corruption. We need you.
Never again.
Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 5 of Once Upon a Mormon. I am Sister May. I will be presiding and conducting this meeting today. I am joined by my co-host Sister Donna and Brother Hiram.
Hello.
How are you guys today?
Hi.
We're doing well. We're doing
good.
well.
I'm so
It's
good.
been a week.
Yes.
Just want to do a quick shout out
week
to my
and
mother.
one
Happy
day.
Mother's Day for yesterday. We were a
Yeah.
day late, so we were all celebrating our fabulous parents.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. So jumping right in today, we will be discussing the topic of prophets, more particularly modern day prophets. So Sister Donna, if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about what a prophet is.
Okay, so in the Mormon Church, a prophet is basically, when we're talking about modern day prophets, we're talking about the guys that are sort of in charge of the church. So you've got your president of the church, who I think at the moment is Russell M. Nelson. He's got a couple counselors, and then you have the Quorum of the 12, which are like basically like Jesus's 12 apostles. That's what they're supposed to be, representing basically. And then you've got some other like lower level authorities below them. But basically the president of the church, his counselors, and the Quorum of the 12, they are men called to speak for the Lord. And they are sustained by members of the church as prophets, seers, and revelators. So basically they're able to receive revelation to guide the church and the world, I guess, as well. So they speak on behalf of God, apparently.
Apparently being the key word.
But I think they probably do not. And we're going to get into that.
A spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Brother Hiram, so I believe that Joseph Smith was the first Mormon prophet. Do you mind explaining a little bit more about Joseph Smith and his role, I guess, as the prophet?
Yeah, sure. I mean, take it back a little bit further, before the church was actually formed. So we look at the Bible, and as we've already heard, prophets are supposed to be the ones that receive revelation directly from God. Now, prophets throughout the Bible were the ones that wrote the Bible, and they received that revelation. Now, Joseph Smith, he claimed to have received direct revelation from God. He was a young boy, and he went into the forest to pray because he was trying to figure out which is the true church. And he went to the forest all by himself, and he was supposedly visited by God and Jesus, and they told him that, hey, you know what? I think you should be the prophet. And so from there, he started formulating a few things, talking to a few people, getting a few people on board, and he claimed himself as the first prophet of the Latter-day Church, commonly known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons. I don't like that anymore. But yeah, that's essentially where Joseph Smith comes into the picture. Now, Joseph Smith supposedly was led to some golden plates written by prophets on the American continent, which conveniently didn't have any records prior, and he supposedly was the only one to be able to read and translate off of these plates. And with the help of other people in secret, he didn't let anyone see it. He spoke the words that he was translating, in air quotes, to somebody else behind a curtain, and they wrote it down for him because he wasn't educated. And that's essentially where it all started.
Sounds legit.
Yes. Very legit.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. So I just kind of wanted to direct a little bit more towards our personal experiences with prophets. Do you guys have like a moment where you kind of realized, hey, maybe they're talking shit?
I think for me, like, I don't really remember any. I guess the only thing that I can really remember, like something that happened, I guess, in my time in the church, was, you know how, like a few years ago, there was that whole push for the I'm a Mormon campaign. It was like this multi-million-dollar marketing campaign that the church put out. Basically, they had like advertisements and stuff, you know, celebrating the nickname for the church, which was Mormon.
I do remember that. I was on my mission at the time, and they had it plastered over billboards, on buses. We were handing out cards. We were chatting online all about it. There was a whole website for it. I remember that phase very vividly.
Yeah,
those
and
were always my
I
favorite
think
cards to hand out.
Yeah, I think the whole premise of it was like, you know, basically showing like people out in the world that, you know, Mormons were these normal kind of people, and just kind of explaining that, you know, these people live normal lives and we're not some weird cult. Like, I think that was sort of the message they were trying to get across.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were really celebrating, you know, the term Mormon. And, you know, so everybody was happy to say, I'm a Mormon and I belong to the Mormon church and like this, that, and the other. And then I remember when Russell and Nelson, when he took over as president of the church, he suddenly is all like, we don't go by Mormon anymore. He only wanted the church referred to as its whole name, like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you know, to put the focus back on Jesus and all of that. But like, you know, they changed the name of like all of their websites and stuff, and they completely scrapped this whole, you know, advertising campaign. And it just seemed really strange to me because I'm like, okay, so like literally just a minute ago we're saying that I'm a Mormon and be proud of that and stuff, and now you're saying that we can't use that term anymore because it's somehow disrespectful to the church. Like, I don't understand.
They spent millions of dollars on advertising and all these different things.
Yeah, I always thought that they spent, they did all of that advertising and stuff because of the play I Am Mormon, so I used to like kind of try and advertise it as like, oh, you've seen the play, but have you read the book? Like, read the book before you see the play.
Yeah.
Bit of a counteract.
I had so many people take a Book of Mormon from that.
Yeah.
So bad now.
Well, even then, like when I was in London, they had the play on in London, the Book of Mormon musical. I still haven't seen it. We should go see it.
Yes, I'm down for that.
I've heard it's lit. I guess for me, like when it comes to that turning point with prophets, it's a lot of the inconsistency. Now, I mean, you look at the racist thing. You know, for the longest time, black men were not allowed to receive the priesthood, and that was supposedly revelation from God because of their cursed skin. And then all of a sudden, people started getting a little bit upset about it, and they're like, "Oh, maybe we'll just change this. Oh, wait a second, I've received revelation." You know, we're going to live this band now, and black men can receive the priesthood. You know, just because you receive public pressure, it shouldn't alter your so-called wisdom and so-called prophetic visions. And that happens with a lot of things. They do backflips. You know, we can go back through many different conferences where in the old days, you know, prophets and apostles will say one thing, and now they're like, actually, this is what it is. Like, the Book of Mormon hasn't changed. It's the same as when essentially, when Joseph Smith wrote. It's just because it's extra footnotes. So why is all this revelation changing? It's, God isn't going. It's supposed to be the same yesterday, today, and forever. Why is he all of a sudden changing all of these standards? Like, I reckon, it's only a matter of years before they start allowing gay men and gay women back into the church. It's just one of those things, because they're going to realize they're losing people and they need more membership, because without the membership, they don't get the money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I think like the whole black people in the priesthood thing was a big thing for me as well, because I remember, because I knew that for a long time black people in the church weren't allowed to have the priesthood, but during my lifetime they were allowed, and it just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, okay, if this is the true church, and the true church of course would not be racist, why were these people denied the blessings of the priesthood and saving ordinances of the temple? And like, I did look a little bit more into it since leaving the church, and like, yeah, it's insane, because basically from the time of Brigham Young, who was like the second president of the church after Joseph Smith, through to I don't know who it was who revoked it, but it wasn't until like 1978 that they allowed black priesthood holders to, black people to have the priesthood. And and it was really weird, because like, they tell us all the time that doctrine doesn't change, God doesn't change. It's only like policies and stuff that change. But I mean, the whole priesthood with black people, that was entirely a doctrinal issue, and they definitely like paint it that way. Like, there's a quote, who was this by? It was from the first presidency of the church in 1949, right? And it said, the attitude of the church with reference to the Negroes remains as it has always stood. It is not a matter of the declaration of a policy, but of direct commandment from the Lord, on which is founded the doctrine of the church from the days of its organization. So they've literally said, like, that whole thing was doctrinal. God did not want black people to have the priesthood because they had somehow wronged God in the pre-existence or some bullshit, and that's why they were cursed with black skin, and that's why they couldn't have all of the blessings available to white members of the church. And so like, looking into that more so since leaving the church has been just a real eye-opener to just the ridiculousness of it all, because I guess, when I was in the church, they explained stuff like that away, being like, oh, well, it was just the people at the time, it was the culture, it was this, that, and the other. But, if God doesn't change, and, and if doctrine is doctrine that's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, then why, why suddenly are they accepting of black people, and why wasn't it always that way? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, Boyke Packer in 1993 even said, it said doctrine cannot be changed. Now, if this revelation and attitude of the church with in reference to, I hate the way they use these words, the Negroes, remains as it had always stood, why did they change that doctrine if doctrine cannot be changed? Like, I'm going to preference this. We're not racist people. We are totally disgusted by the way all ethnicities has been treated by the church and by the broader community. For ourselves, we're part of a lot of minority groups. I'm part of the BLT sandwich, and the way that we're treated as minorities is appalling. And they use this as an excuse that doctrine cannot be changed. Well, you did. You changed it because at the time the movement was reducing and getting away from racism.
And it's not just that either. Like, they also changed a lot of things in temple ceremonies, and there was this whole like Adam God theory.
I literally just found out about that like this week, that Adam God theory, that, and it's just fucking blown away. I was like, who the fuck? Like, yeah, makes no sense.
Yeah. So, like, you know,